Listen-only mode.
Good morning. Welcome to Admiral Markets traders. Thanks for joining us today. Today is the 22nd of May. Sorry, May is a beautiful month in my opinion, but unfortunately it's flying by pretty quickly. We're going to take a look, as always, at some setups here. What I think could be interesting, and you are definitely encouraged to share your opinion, screenshots, anything that you have to show or to ask or to comment. By all means, it's an open forum in that manner. Except one thing, that I have the mic, but I can show to others anything that you would like to present as well. So before we actually go to the Forex market and price and setups, potential setups, we have this PowerPoint explaining the disclaimer here that this online educational material is developed by Admiral Markets Estonia for a global audience. Please take into account that the info in this session may not be suitable for everyone. To get the corresponding information excuse me, on charting conditions and other details, please visit www.admiralmarketsglobal.com. Select your country of residence and contact an appropriate entity. Also, trading for exchange and global financial markets is considered very high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational purposes only. By continuing watching this webinar, you agree with this disclaimer and the content mentioned here. And we thank you for your attention regarding this risk disclaimer. We'll be looking at price action, support, and resistance today. So we're looking at candlestick patterns, and we'll be looking at momentum and corrections and chart patterns that are occurring close to specific support and resistance levels, like trend lines, like daily fractals, and moving averages. And these are steps that we want to keep an eye on. The trend, opportunity, filters, triggers, and method entries before the actual trade could be taken. Make sure to take a look at Admiral Markets in Twitter, Facebook, for instance. And let's take a look at today's calendar. Well, we have German PMI coming up in 40 minutes, and we have pound GDP. As always, the usual news events. Let's wait for those to happen, and then the market will be free to trade on the euro and pound. We also have CAD core retail sales today. I was looking at this New Zealand Swissy right now, looking at the potential for a continuation. We had actually a breakout here, so it's a bit of off topic because it's price action at support resistance. So in a way, we had price action at that support resistance. We had a break, in fact. So it depends how you interpret it. So that's why I'm looking at it, because we had a push through this trend line. That's something that I thought was interesting for us to keep an eye on here today. If you look at the 4-hour chart, we can see a few things that are interesting. First of all, a pretty steep correction down to the blue line, but we did bounce off that intermediate moving average. Second of all, the bounce itself has been pretty aggressive. We had engulfing twins, another engulfing twins, another engulfing twins. This 4-hour candle closed bullish near the high. Also, the AO, if you compare this bottom to this bottom, there's a bit of a hidden bullish divergence between these bottoms. The price has a higher low, but the oscillator has a lower low. That's actually a bullish signal potential. So it has a few things going. Let's take a look on the daily chart. Daily chart, we can see price is still within that momentum. If you look at the 21 and 34 EMA here, right? Price is above it, and they're still bullish, they're still green, they're still aligned to the upside. So this could have been a retracement from our upside. Yesterday was kind of like a bit pin bar, in fact. Here. So this doesn't have to go to the moon, it's just going to make a few pips up, but that could be enough for a smaller intra-day or maybe even intra-week still trade. Alrighty. This is the hourly, and you can see we have a crossover here. Not that crossovers are something we want to trade, but it just gives the momentum switch. That's all, and indicates the growing momentum to the upside. So, and we can see the AO also slowly but surely growing and increasing. That's why I'm interested in this pair. Now let's talk about maybe the entry that I would find interesting. Right? That's the next step. Analysis is one step. Entries and exits is the next step. So if I look at this, we are pretty close to H3. We're struggling at H3. What I would like is a hook back to the L3 and the broken trend line. So I wouldn't mind a pending order here around 76.54 with either a stop loss below the L4 or below the L5. That depends. Both are valid. Both. One is a bit tighter. One is a bit looser. I guess it depends how long a trader would want to keep that trade open. If it's more shorter term, the stop loss L4 could make sense. If a bit longer term, maybe L5 makes more sense. But somewhere in here, I would think is a good bounce spot. 76.54 is roughly here at this red line. Let me make it blue. And we have bottoms here. That's where the stop loss should be below. And that's correct because the stop loss is below the minimum is L4, which is 76.41. And if you look at the hourly bottoms, they come in at about 76.45 and 76.40. So that makes sense. And price is maybe even continuing right here, right now. It's still keeping its head up, still above the moving averages. We can add an extra one. Let me just add the one indicator here. 1 second. Forgot the name of it. 1 second. Let me check that. Ah, it's here. This is an ATR pivot point calculator. And this is the projection high of today. So today's projection high is just above the R2. So you can see there's not much space here left. That's what I was trying to look at. So in that regard, it could be wiser to wait indeed for the pullback instead of taking the breakout. That was my point of the exercise here that I was trying to figure out. So I was just trying to see if it would be maybe worth taking the break, but of these tops. But looking at the ATR, that would not make sense. And waiting for the pullback would be better. So that's something we can keep an eye on the next hour. Let's see. Other things I think are interesting are the pound yen. Why the pound yen? Well, just looking at the hourly, there's a lot of momentum here. A lot of push, and that makes it interesting at the moment. We had kind of a breakout to the upside, in fact, yesterday after a break to the downside, a bit of a mixture. The pound, of course, is pushing this pound yen the most. Actually, the dollar yen is also bouncing up. So two things are here in play, the yen weakness, in fact, and the pound strength. One second, folks. I just need to quickly grab something. Takes 2 seconds. Alrighty, folks, sorry for that delay. let's see, pound yen is in that upside momentum I was talking about, making higher highs, higher lows, so that looks interesting to me as a potential bounce to the upside here. And we could see some, I would say this is more of an intraday continuation potential for this pound yen. So 50-minute chart might be wise. And what do we see here? Let's take a look. We have broken tops here, and we have a bottom fractal right in here, right? So that could be the bouncing spot, potentially. Let's take a look now at 50-minute chart. And we have pivot and L3 a bit lower, in fact. So looking at it from this perspective, we could see maybe a bigger pullback. We have a lot of momentum riding with it, but the question is, will we get the bounce at this spot? I think it's worth taking a look at, keeping an eye on it. Worst case scenario, it could go all the way to 170.80 before we get the bounce. That's the question, if we get the bounce in this zone or this zone. Both are viable options, in fact. Let's keep an eye on it. But I do like the potential here of a follow-through, considering the pound strength. Also, if you look at the momentum that we have here, we can see follow-through of the momentum and maybe see some continuation to go to higher levels and to retest basically this bigger resistance right in here. And 172.40. Got a lot of momentum here. Still some space until we bump into bigger resistance. So basically a hook back for that continuation up to that zone would be the idea. Let's see if we connect this trend line. We also have a bit of space still to that resistance. That could be a stalling spot too. So somewhere in that level, we got multiple confluences of resistance coming in that would make sense as a target as well. So the pound yen is interesting to keep an eye on. Let's start now with the euro dollar as always. The euro dollar is making maybe a double bottom. Who knows? It has a bullish candle on the 4-hour, but it still has the downside momentum. I'm not really interested in either side at the moment. So despite the downside momentum, basically this could still be a hook back for upside. I'm on the sidelines, basically on the waiting mode, and either waiting for still a break of this tops right in here, maybe this trend line for instance, will probably not happen today, well maybe, or we need to break at least this bottom or maybe this bottom. We're getting engulfing twins actually as we speak, so it's a bit of a mixed picture. Pound dollar is a bit different. It is in a bullish trend to the upside. We have a trend line, support trend line like this. We have price still above the moving averages, so this could be a retracement for upside. Now one way of measuring that is waiting for this break of this trend line to happen, right? Because when that happens, we could have the upside continuation. That's something that makes sense to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the 50-minute chart. What does that trend line mean on the 15-minute chart? That trend line means basically that we would be probably back in the uptrend. At the 50-minute chart, we see we're making a retracement. Why? Price is below the moving averages. That indicates the retracement. Price bounced off the pivot and is now heading to the L3. So those could be bouncing spots still for a triangle potential maybe. You can see that potential right there building as we speak. But we would need a bounce right now. It would be a tight triangle, by the way. It could happen. If not, then we're breaking the potential triangle. Actually, right now, we're breaking it. If you do it like this, that makes more sense. So we have to see. I'm not trading this to the downside because we have an uptrend, so this is not interesting to me. Plus, there's just a bit of space before we bump into support, before we bump into support, before we bump into support. That does not make sense, but there could be bouncing spots for upside. If the most important, in my opinion, the most interesting setup that I am looking for is the pound break of this trend line, and we could see maybe potential for price to go up to a breakout trade up to H3 and then maybe H4 and H5. already. Back to the hourly. And if we do that, of course, we'll have a breakout with the trend, with the momentum. You can see clear momentum here. Sorry, I was just trying to fix my drawing tool. It wasn't working properly. Now it is. Good. Okay. So momentum. Why momentum? Because the 21 is above the 34 EMA. And we have a pretty substantial gap here, right? So we could see follow through with that momentum. Yesterday's high is all the way here, 169.21. So there's some space, at least to when we get the breakout up to the H3 and the daily high. That's always pleasant. From a bigger perspective, let's just take a look at the daily chart for the fun of it to get some perspective here. And it's a big daily candle. So that shows indeed the bullishness. This could have been a retracement of that bullish candle for upside. So that makes sense too. There's harmony. There's a match between that or confirmation of that. Good. So let's move on to the AUD USD now. AUD USD is retracing after a strong fall right back to the support level 92 that we were keeping an eye on. And indeed we got the bounce there and we're getting strong bounces to the upside. So for the moment, I'm not too interested in this pair because if you took the bounce here, great. If there was a bit of a small inverse head and shoulders here, maybe on the 50-minute chart you can see that better, like that. If you took that trade, great job. Hang in there, or maybe you already took profit. That's up to you. But for the moment, or we can look at it if anyone is in that trade, but for the moment, I wouldn't want to trade it right here, right now. It basically is too much of a mix. Price is retracing still. The moving averages are not showing any momentum to the downside at the moment, nor to the upside. A bit to the upside because they are green, but they're not confirmed. And in fact, it's too much of a mixture, in my opinion, to trade it. We've got bullish price action, but a lot of bearishness. So still in the waiting mode. If you look at the Camarilla levels, what do we see here? Well, we do have a breakout here according to the Camarilla, but it's not a breakout that I would be very interested in. I have to admit that this is one I would skip. Maybe it would be different if we bounce off the pivot and L3 confluence here as a bouncing spot, because that could happen. Price could be building on a channel like this, for instance, like this. That, and if price then hooks back to it, it could bounce for a continuation of that channel. So that might be interesting, but I don't know. Maybe there's something better. I think the New Zealand Swissy and the pound yen were more interesting, and the pound dollar. Kiwi, New Zealand dollar. Let me get rid of all these lines here for a moment. It's a bit full. Kiwi is also same story as the Aussie. It's just flat. There's no momentum at the moment here. We had a lot of down momentum, some up, then a lot of down momentum, and it's flat at the moment, just like it was flat here. But this was at least still a breakout. Here we have kind of like a zigzag correction. It could be back to resistance, but I think it's a bit risky. Let's put a fib on this very first correction here. Price was at the minus 272 target. Bullish price action. AO going back to the zero line here. Seems a bit uninteresting to me. Good trendline break here, but at the moment, yeah, not interesting. No, I would wait and see still. If we get momentum back to the downside, fine, or upside, but let's take a look at this Camarilla here. Maybe if price were to break below this trend line and the L3 could change things. but for the moment I'll be in a waiting mode. Let's take a look at dollar CAD. Dollar CAD continued some upside yesterday, but now we're tracing again back down, and I'm not too interested in this one. It seemingly broke out of this trend line here. If you put a trend line connecting these tops, that is true. So this could be a hook back. But if you look at the 4-hour, there's not a lot of momentum. It's a bit flattish. Here too, flattish. So not too keen on this dollar CAD. Let's take a look at the dollar Swissy. Dollar Swissy, same story. Right at the tops here, there's some upside momentum, but still right at resistance, in fact. Key level of resistance on the daily chart here. You see, so that therefore not so interesting. Let's take a look at the dollar yen. Dollar yen had a bit of a doji yesterday with a wick at the bottom, a bit of a wick at the top, more at the bottom though. Price could be bouncing off the support level that we had here, like that. But we have to see if we get follow through of that bounce to the upside. Dollar yen, I don't think is the best example either of a trade set up today potentially. You could take a look at the hourly. There is some momentum to the upside at the moment, which is aiding that pound yen. So maybe we'll see the bounce here too, but then I'd rather take the pound yen because the dollar yen is definitely different than the pound yen. There could be a bouncing spot here because there is some momentum to the upside, but I would be cautious. Pound yen is getting into that zone, closer to the zone that I was thinking about. Let's see how it reacts here. Euro yen is totally different than the pound yen because it's flat. So that's maybe a bit of a warning that the pound yen, we would need some confirmation of the pound yen before trading it because the euro yen and dollar yen don't look really set up that much. This is the odd yen. Let's take a look. Also getting some retrace to the upside, but not as good as the pound yen. Euro odd had a big upside yesterday. Sorry, actually it had still some upside, but then we had more of a correction, in fact, on my previous statement. So what is it now? We're getting a crossover here of the momentum. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart to see the bigger picture. Big move up, big impulse up. It's a bit of a mixed picture. Price is respecting maybe this trend line here like that. And if you look at pure price action, we got a pretty interesting bearish candle yesterday right at that trend line. So that's a classical example of price action at support and resistance, I would say. We already broke yesterday's low, so this could be some down momentum. If you look at the momentum, if you look at the 21 and 34 EMA on this daily chart on the euro odd, then we see it's bearish. And the hourly is accordingly as well. So this could be interesting for downside, especially if it gets back to the H3. Now that might be a tall order, but I like that level there, around 148, 16, 19. Now that might be a tough one for price to get to though, and that's a pity. It would be a nice one because it would be a hook back to basically, you see these bottoms in here, you see a resistance here, you see kind of a low in here. That level with the stop loss just above it would be, above these tops, would be a very tight stop loss here for an hourly chart on the euro odd of about 35 pips, a bit less maybe even. But the potential for downside could be pretty good. If you look at that, the daily candle, we could see maybe some downside to, for instance, well, there could be really a lot of potential to the downside. If this is a hook back for more downside, there could be really a lot of potential, in fact. It could go all the way to 144 potentially. That's the minus 272 target. So obviously, very interesting setup. So let's go back to that 50-minute chart. Will we make that hook back? That's the question. Right now, let me put the ATR on. You see, right now we're pretty close to expected lows, in fact, projected lows of the day for the moment. So, yeah, we would like to see price go back to this range for that downside. That would be nice. I think we're a bit too far in the process maybe to try it right here, right now. Also, the AO is going back to the zero line slowly but surely. Now, mind you, we don't have divergence between these bottoms. Not at all, in fact. So that's a good thing, which means that if we get this to the zero line, then we should see that follow through. So I like this euro out. It's well structured, but from a higher level. Let me put that on the watch list 1 second. I don't have that on the watch list. I didn't look at it this way. I had the pound yen and New Zealand Swiss C on my watch list. Pound CAD is something we'll still discuss. But this euro odd also makes sense. Alrighty. I'm just checking if there's anything else to mention. I don't think so. There was something in my mind. I forgot what it was exactly, unfortunately, but I got distracted when I wrote down something. But okay, it doesn't matter. Let's continue with the pound odd, just to finish this this cycle, and then we'll take a look at the New Zealand yen. Bob is giving us a heads up there, so that's great. Just quickly, the pound odd. Let's see if the daily chart shows the same. First of all. Now, the pound odd is actually a bit different because it's broke through this trend line. And so that's a potential breakout to the upside. So we have to realize that this is a bit different. The euro, of course, is also a bit weaker than the pound. Therefore, that could explain that difference. And if we look at the pound odd, we can see that the daily chart isn't as dramatic. We have a bit of a wick on top. But we haven't broken yesterday's low as yet, which is about here. So let's see if we can break through that. There is a lot of momentum on the 4-hour chart. I'll be more cautious with the pound odd. It doesn't seem similar setup. This could actually be a hook back for more upside. So not that I would trade that as yet. I would want more confirmation. But wouldn't want to trade it to the downside either. Probably need to see price break through these tops here. That red line, and let me make this one a blue one. Good. So those are maybe the lines in the sand at the moment. Not that I want to trade the blue one, by the way, the red one specifically. Now let's take a look at the New Zealand yen. New Zealand yen indeed was looking for a hook back to roughly here, if I remember at the top of my heart, although it didn't seem likely. Yesterday we did get the retracement that deep. Funny how that can work. Right to the 78.6 fib indeed. So funny how those things work. You think when price is all the way down here, you think, oh boy, it's going to take forever. Well, it did, I mean, not that it was a quick upside. It did take some hours, but eventually it did get there. Funny how the market works, doesn't it? We have some pretty strong bullish candles, though. I guess that's could be expected with a retracement, but this is not showing. 4-hour doesn't show any weakness at the moment. The daily has a bit of a pin bar here. Let's see what the hourly is showing. The hourly has an up momentum at the moment. So this is making me a bit leery of that short because the 786 fib, if that's I mean, if someone took the trade there, you can even move it to break even and or just put the stop loss just above these tops, and that's great. You're on you're doing a great job because you've limited the risk, but you still have a chance of more downside. So that's a great job. Taking a trade right here is somewhat risky, in my opinion. Too much risk in my opinion at the moment, I would say, because when the momentum is going our way, that's great because you can see these breaks are doing fine, aren't they? Right? But the thing is, even this one here, maybe, well, that's the early one. Forget that one. But the thing is that if the momentum is twisting now at the moment, and we did have the crossover, as I said, not to trade the crossovers, but just as an analysis point of view, then things become a bit more riskier, because if price then hooks back here, it could find support and continue to higher grounds like this. If you took the short in here, you can move it to break even or just a few pips loss, and if it does that, then there's hardly any drawdown or hardly any disadvantage of that particular short. Shorting in here leaves us exposed to that potential, unfortunately, and therefore I would be cautious of it. But if you took the 78.6, then you wouldn't have that problem, and that's good. For shorts, I would say we would need price to make it down and up, show some weakness, and then fall through it like this. So that would be my my thinking here on the New Zealand yen. So let me know, Bob, if you see it the same or maybe different. By all means, we gladly hear from your opinion, of course. In the meantime, though, I'll just continue with this pound CAD, and that one seemed potentially interesting as well. By the way, we have a lot of momentum to the upside. Let me get rid of everything here. Not to say that the 4-hour is not that interesting, by the way, if you look at this sideways chop, but primarily this momentum here, to ride the momentum a bit further. That is the idea. We have to be cautious of all these resistances above us, though. Got level support below us as well. Price is a bit caught between those levels. What I like about it is not that there's a great 4-hour trend in play. There isn't. There is a good daily trend in play to the upside, but we've had such a long stall, right? More primarily, it's just more a short-term trade in the sense that we have momentum to the upside here. We have a very strong AO reading, which I like. And this is almost back to the zero line. So a punch up and then a follow through, something like that could make sense. Now, of course, we have the pound news in about an hour and 10 minutes from now. So this is something that is not actually going to happen right here, right now, or something that's interesting for right here, right now. But depending on the news event happens, if we get a spike up, and after the news event we get a nice hook back, then the next break could be a good one. All right, so that's something I'm keeping an eye on. Now the CAD is not at the moment my favorite pair, so therefore maybe I like the pound yen a tad more, just a tad. It's primarily the pound that's the setup here. So what else? Let's take a look at the pound New Zealand and euro New Zealand. Also a lot of momentum to the upside with prices retracing. Euro New Zealand, same story. Just trying to see the Euro New Zealand and pound New Zealand from a different perspective here and comparing them, but relatively the same indeed. Quite choppy at the moment. There's a decent chance that this is a pullback, because if you look at the Euro New Zealand daily chart, for instance, let me get rid of these two lines here. If you look at the Euro New Zealand daily, what do we have here on the daily chart? Bearish candle, break of that low as well, just like the Euro odd. So in that regard, it could be the same scenario as the Euro odd. Wait for the pullback to the pivot and HT short, and wait for the retracement of, for instance, this price action up to about 159.60. Let's see what that's a bit lower actually than this level. Anywhere between that and this top, 4 more downside, right? Basically. That could be in play in this market, just like the euro odd. We can take a look at the odd New Zealand to see which one is better. The euro CAD seems to be breaking. Let's take a look at that break. It's actually approaching the L4. Making engulfing twins as well as we speak. So that could be a short right here, right now, in fact. We broke this particular fractal here. So a hook back, for instance, to that broken fractal as a small hiccup here, small retracement for more downside would make sense in my opinion. So 149.10, 149.8 with a stop loss, for instance, at, let's see, would have to be probably above these tops, about 149.40, right, would be a decent technical level, I would say. I mean, the real top is all the way at 149.53 stop loss, 50 or even 60, but that's getting that depends how aggressive one wants to go with the stop loss. The 60 is the safest, the 60, 65. But this is looking like a breakout, so we can even wait for this 1 hour candle to post and wait for the retracement of the hourly candle, or just put a pending right there at these smaller bottoms here that are here, right here. So this one too, interesting too. Let me put that on my watch list. 1 second. Let's see. The odd Swissy. Let me check that one. Nope. Odd New Zealand. Also not that interesting at the moment. It's just a mess with the momentum moving averages, so I would skip that one. Just checking the last ones quickly here if there's anything interesting or that I want to show / cat Swissy. No. Pound Swissy still finding its legs up. For those that are in that trade, the stop loss could be below these bottoms, and it's a perfect trail stop loss in that regard. Luckily, the price moved sideways, and therefore allowing the traders to move a perfect stop loss behind this this bottom here. The correction would have been more aggressive, then of course that would have been unfortunate. But in this regard, it's a perfect actually for a trail stop loss. Let's see. I took an entry here at 149.25. So by moving it to 75, that's 150 pips already, and that's a good amount compared to the risk, which was about 32. So almost a 5-to-1. And that's a good thing about trail stopping or trail stop losses, and they're still open and can still break through. Although I doubt it somehow they'll break through, but the pound is in strength, so maybe maybe we can see that follow through. But this is more just a continuation of trail stop. Let's take a look at other things. That is about it, I think. Yep. EuroCAD is, well, a hook back would be about 149.08, 149.10 for instance. It's a small hook back, but those 8 or 10 pips a market usually does make. I mean, most of the time a small retracement like that does happen. So with that said, I think those are the pairs I find most interesting. EuroCAD, Euro New Zealand, Euro New Zealand Swiss, Pound CAD, Pound Yen. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Not that I remember. No. Good. So I got a question from Marcio about odd yen. Let's go to odd yen. 4-hour chart. Let's see. The question is, Can the odd yen 4-hour chart be considered end of correction up and back to downtrend? Let's take everything off. Let's see. Well, the yen is always the question here, because the yen is up to no good, I think, in a way. It's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't it? Certainly compared to the past, 2013, and even end of 2012, right, where we had a great trending mode. So that's making it a bit more difficult to trade all of these yen pairs, in fact. But with that regard, let's take a look at this 4-hour chart. We can see we have a lot of momentum to the downside, in fact. This AO is very strong, and it's retracing to the zero line, but hasn't reached the zero line. There's always a chance that we get one more bump here before we get to the zero line, and you kind of see something like this. For instance, you see price making kind of this motion. That's price, and the AO is making kind of like this motion. No, wait, 1 second. This is price, and the AO is making something like this. Right? So you get that divergence between these bottoms and these tops. This could still happen here, but because price really moved pretty aggressively up, I think that this is going to go straight to the zero line without any bump. And we'll probably hit the zero line without that retrace, without that follow through for one more time. So in that regard, I think it's too early. It still hasn't reached the zero line, and we have pretty aggressive price action, pretty big pin bar too, and we have lots of space still to retrace on the daily chart. This is the top of the daily chart. That would be a resistance zone, maybe somewhere in here. Now there's potential for these bottoms to be resistance, I'm not saying, but I would want to see at least some price action that confirms that, and I don't see that on a 4-hour chart. I see aggressive bullish candles here, and although the hourly we see maybe some downside here, that's still too early in my opinion. Moving averages are pointed up, so I would therefore be in a waiting mode with regard to the odd yen at the moment. Also, we have no divergence between these 50-minute tops, for instance. So one thing that one could make sense, if you look at this 50-minute chart and look at the AO, is that if we get some correction like that, and we get the follow through to create divergence, which at the moment seems likely to me, then when we get that divergence between these tops, shorting somewhere around this area between 94.50 and 94.75 at the R3 or H5 would be, of course, an interesting potential then. That could be the reversal spot or retracement spot. So let's see what the ATR is saying. Yeah, it has bouncing spots here too. That's what I'm scared of. So with that regard, if we get that divergence and one more move up to 94.50, what does that look like in the hourly? 94.50 is about here. You can see that this level here could indeed be that support. So maybe one more push up to that level, 94.50, and we can see the resistance here kick in. We kind of got this smaller pause in here, which is kind of like a smaller supply and demand zone within a fall. So that could be a good extra confluence for downside. So that would be one way of tackling it. I could be wrong. Could be very wrong, and this could fly down. Who knows? So don't don't get mad at me if it does. But looking at especially the 4-hour candle here, I wouldn't think it's worth the risk. Let me say it this way. maybe at a higher spot. That's when it will be interesting. Yep, great. Yeah, confirmation can never hurt, especially in cases where the setup or chart don't seem as unified or as much confluence as we might want to have. Yeah, we did look at the pound odd, not specifically for any level as yet, because of, well, we did actually. We said we would like a break of this top at the moment. Not anything earlier because of the fact that the daily chart didn't get much follow through yesterday. We have a small candle, that's true, but there's a bit of a wick there too. And because of that, you know, we didn't get a pretty good, like a very big breakout. We have some breakout here, but yesterday's candle didn't tower all the way to 185 or something like that, 184. So if that would have happened, maybe a hook back to that level could have even been worth an entry order. No problem, Bob. We can repeat that. It's no problem. And would have been merited a entry order maybe. Now I wouldn't be thinking about an entry order because maybe a bit more confirmation. We could actually start retracing this entire this up leg, but we don't know if this up leg is finished. We don't know that as yet. For the moment, we have 1, 2, 3, fourth candle. If it doesn't break within the next this open candle and the next 5 and 6, then probably there's going to be more retracement coming. If it does break these tops within the next 2.5 candles, this open one and the next 2 one, then the daily is still continuing with its momentum probably. So that's something to keep an eye on. If it does break, these tops sooner or later or shortly within this trading day, let's say, then it could be worth it because we do have a strong momentum here, right? We do have a move back to the zero line. So what we need is the break of the next fractal when we have the zero line, we've reached the zero line. That would be at the moment here, but it could be a fractal that's lower in the future, right? The next fractal could be somewhere here, and that would be a valid one too. At the moment the fractal is here, but in the future it could be lower. That would be the entry that makes sense to me. Now, if we don't get the breakthrough and indeed we spend the entire trading day within this zone like that, then I would think a retracement down to the 38.2 fib and maybe then even to the 50 fib before we bounce up seems more likely. So those are the main scenarios that I would see on this pound odd. Now let's take a look. The Euro CAD seems to be retracing a bit more, but hopefully we'll get to push through again. We did get the retracement as anticipated, so that's a good thing. It saves at least 10 or 14, 12 or 14 pips. That is always a lot. At the moment, it seems like a retracement of the 50-minute chart, but we can keep an eye on this hourly candle. I mean, if the hourly closes very bullish, or even with a doji with a big wick, then I would exit the trade because then it's more of a false breakout. It could be a false breakout, but I wouldn't want to risk that. So keeping an eye on this hourly makes sense. At the moment, there is a big wick, but of course this candle isn't finished, so it wouldn't say much as yet. It only has info or value if it closes like that. One disadvantage of this Euro CAD break is the fact that if you look at the moving averages, they just crossed over. So there's not a lot of momentum to the downside as yet. That's one of the disadvantages of this particular breakout. It's a breakout, but the market is not in the momentum as yet. Those have the risk that they don't really go anywhere. So being a bit more aggressive in managing it makes sense because of the lack of momentum. Momentum is sideways here, to be honest. And it doesn't have a momentum like this, for instance, right? That break is different because if you look at the break, we had momentum. Look at the gap between those moving averages, and boom, we get it, right? We don't have that here. We could get it. If price does push through, then the next break would have that momentum. That would be a momentum break. This is a classical chart pattern breakout. They can work, but they have their risks because of the lack of momentum. If the price does push through, then pauses, and then breaks again, that is a momentum breakout. That's the difference. Being a bit more aggressive in trade management on these, I think, compared to these, is useful. What do I think of the dollar yen? Let's take a look. Dollar yen. Yeah. Difficult to say, to be honest. It's just such a bag mix of everything. We had a doji yesterday getting some follow through. We broke through these smaller tops of these highs here. We actually, if you look at the 21 and 34 EMA, slowly but surely have some momentum to the downside. Four-hour chart has bullish price action, however. So does the 1 hour. Adrian is talking about possible forming a head and shoulder on hourly and then going down. Let's take a look. Head and shoulder on hourly. Yeah, could be. We have this formation already in play. That's true. That's true indeed. We would need to see a right shoulder indeed, and a break of the neckline would be the confirmation, as you know. Could be, yeah. Could be very true. The moment the momentum is up, if you look at the momentum moving averages, the arrows are pretty high up as well, showing trending mode. Let's see, this is the pound yen. Similar situation, although pound yen has more upside than the dollar yen, clearly. And looking for 171.44, 171.40, and it just missed it. It went to 46 here, very close to it, in fact. Looks like we're getting some bounce. Okay, keep an eye on. We can keep an eye on this hourly chart. See if this ends up like a pin bar or something like that. You know, if it does end up like a pin bar, we could see maybe something like this, a hook back and then go. That could be another scenario if it doesn't get to this lower level here. Yeah, and the news indeed definitely could be a big influence on the all pounds. Also pound yen, definitely, maybe even more so than others because it moves a lot anyhow, so definitely true. Something we have to be careful of indeed. The dollar yen daily is just a mess. There's a trend line maybe if we connect these tops like this. So we'll have to see. If price breaks above 102.36, there could be this breakout. If then price does decide to break below 170, then we'll have that potential breakout. Yeah, there's certainly that bearish momentum starting to build a bit indeed. That is very true. Let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly, we see a wick, bearish indeed. But this whole zone is sideways. And we'll have to see if we can push through 1070 because we've been here at the light green line more often, right? But we didn't get to break through it as yet. Price has been above the light green line basically ever since this weekly candle, hasn't it? So it would be a big thing if we push through the 1070. This is 14th of October 2012. The price has been above it on the weekly, above this light green line ever since then. So if we do close through it, it would be a, it could mean something significant. It could mean that we're going to retrace deeper, make some fall here. And it's going to be interesting to see if this weekly candle can close below it. We will have to see. We still have 2 days left. At the moment, intra-week has pushed through it, but not closed yet. So this support level would be the confirmation. Adrian is saying, for me, it's like a zone like this is like a nose with the tip going down. Yeah, I see your point. I can see visually what you mean. It's like it's almost like falling under its own weight in a way, right? It's just like you just have to nudge it a bit and boom, it falls, right? I see what you mean. It's probably because this took so long. It's a very wide zone. It shows significant lack of follow through to the upside as well because of that. But these consolidations can take long, so we'll have to see. But I can see what you mean. It's definitely possible. It's like, whoa, something like that. Huh? Yeah, let's see. Could be a descending wedge pattern. Time will tell from a intraday perspective. Let's see. To me, it doesn't seem interesting from an intraday perspective. Great stuff, Adrian. So, and everyone else that commented. So, well, that's about it. What I see at the moment, the EuroCAD is really struggling, unfortunately. That's one of the disadvantages if momentum is not on its way. If I would have seen it, maybe I would have even waited for the hourly to finish, to be honest. I didn't notice it at the beginning that the momentum was so weak. But, well, if it closes something like that, then waiting for the pullback and exiting at the same level makes sense. Still 15 minutes left. I like the pound yen because of this, because there is a strong gap here. There's a strong momentum between these moving averages. There's a strong thrust here on the hourly. That's one of the nice things. Thrust is important because if you look at, for instance, I don't know, this is your odd, for instance, you can see that when we have thrust like this, we get big fall. When we have thrust, we get good up, right? Oh, wow. Yep. A news event is very soon, though, so I would be cautious of it at the moment. But this could be something to keep an eye on as it develops because it is the breakout that we were wanted to see. The hourly is towering above it, indeed. Wow. Pound Swiss is not following. That's a pity. But the pound dollar is certainly pushing. And that's why the pound yen and the pound CAD were also more interesting to me than the others, because it's primarily the pound, of course. The pound here. There was one more. Let me see. 1 second. I forgot which one I wanted to show you now. Sorry about that. There was one that I was waiting for a break of the top. I forgot which period it was. Is it the pound odd? Yeah, the pound odd. Yeah, that's also on the list, just like the pound dollar, right? The pound odd. The break of that top though. Yeah, pound looks strong today. I think some pound pair probably would be the primary one, but we'll have to see how the news event handles itself. Euro dollar is getting a bit of a bounce here. That's, of course, primarily pushing that Euro CAD. Let's take a look at the CAD. Dollar CAD is flat at the moment. AUD is doing nothing at the moment. Kiwi is doing nothing at the moment. And the euros and pounds are getting a bit of a bounce. Pound CAD is looking like also a breakout to the upside, as I was saying. That could be interesting to keep an eye on. The break of this top right in here, for instance, we're right at it. In fact, it's the opposite of the Euro CAD. Break through the purple line and a hook back on a 15, for instance. With the hourly, we can see everything is aligned. Pound dollar, let's see. Pound dollar, Adrian is waiting for a retracement to enter. Yeah, I think if we have an hourly candle that is like this, a retracement of the hourly candle anywhere in that candle could be worth a long. The stop loss would still be safe below this bottom though, especially if traded in the news event, but that's always a bit risky. Even after the news event, most likely that's the safest stop loss below there. The tighter one right here is riskier. Let's see. Yeah, I would probably wait with the GDP. I would still wait because that is a big one. And if someone took the trade maybe earlier yesterday, for instance, that's something else because you can wait in the trade and just move your stop loss to that spot. I mean, this, for instance, if the trade was taken in here yesterday morning, that's fine. You could move the trail stop loss and hang in there. But taking a trade right here wouldn't make sense. Anyhow, it's pretty far already from the breakout level. But we'll have to see how the volatility happens within the event. In any case, a hook back to the broken trend line and to this blue line would be a pretty good level, I would say. Maybe the news event will bring it there or up. It could also be that the news event just keeps on skyrocketing. That would be unfortunate in the sense that the price would be continuing. And in that regard, the breakout would have been the better method. Actually, that's what happened yesterday. Price started to push, and the news event happened about here, and the news event did the rest. So only for me if it makes a hook back. If it doesn't, then basically it's too late. Either basically position oneself prior to the trading day, like here could have done for the upside, or try to trade the break through intraday, or try to take the hook back in intraday. But I don't trade it usually if it keeps moving like this, then and it doesn't give a hook back, then either, as I said, earlier position or the breakout, but then there's no hook back, and then then I look at other pairs basically. It broke through the hourly top indeed, so let's see. Not sure what you mean, Adrian. What do you mean with to put a sell pending at the top of that shadow? I would not be looking to sell the pound. No, not here. If price, let's see. Price would have to at least get to the minus 272 at 169.50. 169.50 is basically the H4 level there. That could be some resistance. If that level breaks, then it could go up all the way to test 170 again. But this last piece could be choppy. It could be moving like this. Well, with 5 minutes to go, I can't imagine that this is going to be a big turn coming up on the EuroCAD. So probably would want to exit that at the level of entry if anyone took it. So let's see. Anything else to... Yeah, this is looking like a false breakout exactly. But we still have 5 minutes left, but I hardly imagine this turning into a bearish candle, but we'll know soon enough. New Zealand Swissy. Let's see. And you can see one wise lesson is always look at the momentum. I just didn't think about it at that time. Usually I try to keep my first train of thought of that when we're looking at breakouts is what is the momentum in fact. But I like the trend line a lot, that's why. The trend line is very nice, it's just the momentum wasn't there to push it through. Let's see, the New Zealand Swissy is something I also find interesting. Let's take a look. But the momentum is maybe still a bit on the weaker side. We're getting a lot of downside momentum here, so probably still wait and see on that one. Pretty bearish price action. Let's take a look at the 15. Obviously, we need bearish price action for the retracement, I'm not saying. But if I look at the hourly momentum again, it's just quite quite early in the game still. So I would rather wait for some confirmation first. Could be a bouncing spot though. Still, I still stick with that. But instead of an entry, I would still rather wait for more confirmation. Let's see what else we're looking at. Euro AUD and Euro New Zealand. Well, Euro AUD is giving the retracement, so there's a chance for price to get to that level. And probably Euro New Zealand the same. Yes, same story. It's actually moving pretty aggressively, so be careful if it's moving that aggressively. You might want to see some confirmation before trading it at that level. What else? That's about I think we've covered and reviewed all of them, in fact. Just checking if I missed anything. Not yet. Not that I think so. Not that I know of. So, anyhow, in general, the market is, I don't know, to me it seems pretty big retracements on average. But, I mean, the market's always making retracements. But there's a lot of choppiness, I would say, compared to other trending modes, or let's say, areas where we had good trends, like, for instance, big parts of last year, or even in February, if I remember correctly. But especially April and May have seemed pretty choppy to me on many pairs. The pound yen here is just missed my blue line by 3 pips, and it seems like it's bouncing, but we have the pound news anyhow, so not much to worry about. Let's take a look at the Euro CAD now. Yeah, that definitely looks like a pin bar here. Yeah, so that one is not enough momentum. Always good to keep momentum high. Let's see. Alrighty, folks. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I guess we'll wrap it up. One of the things that maybe also was not so good about that Euro CAD was the fact that I was looking for pound CAD upside, in fact, if I think about it. But and pound yen and pound dollar, those were and New Zealand Swiss, those were the original 3 or 4 I had in my mind. Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. The 4-hour top is all the way at 60. Can still retrace part of that. Got an hourly top at 48. Those could still be resistance spots. But at the moment, it would be better for a retracement of this wick, in fact, and get out as soon as possible, because the moving averages are now even flat, so no, that doesn't make sense. So that would be the best. Hopefully it does so. Fingers crossed. The euro odd is actually, because of the euro upside, is giving that retracement to the upside, so that's a good thing for anyone who wants to trade that euro odd. And what else? I guess we can wrap it up for today. I don't see any questions. So primarily the pound. Let's see how the pound news shapes itself. But that could be interesting regarding pound dollar, pound odd, pound yen. One more time, the pound yen. It really is continuing a lot. It's a pity. That's exactly what I was looking for, but it missed my zone a bit. Good hourly, bit of a pin bar, hourly pin bar there. Now we have a projection high at about 172.27. So if you are in that trade, then there could be some good upside still, depending on the news. Well, we'll have to see. Of course, these setups can change. There could be more setups coming up depending on how things go. It's just a very, very early morning anyhow. So there's still a lot of time till London closes. To be precise, about 6.5 hours, I think. Isn't it so? So 8, no, wait. Yeah, six and a half hours indeed. So still plenty of time to shop around in a way. Well, folks, tonight we'll be back with the webinar. Mehmet and I will be looking at why trading 20 pairs is a good thing. So join us then. It's at 6 p.m. Central European time. And otherwise, that will be it for this week, and we'll be back with new webinars next week. And if I don't speak to you, then I guess have a great weekend. Cheers.